I'm Paul Richmond, and this is my painting, Reaching for the Light. This painting is a tribute to someone very special, my childhood art teacher, Linda Regula. I remember so clearly going to her house for art lessons, starting at age 3. I would go there every week, and Linda taught me how to paint, how to draw, how to be creative. And I just remember walking through her house and seeing all of the vibrant paintings that she had made that were covering the walls, floor to ceiling, and that's when I knew I want to do that too. My life today would be so different if I hadn't known Linda. Linda passed away in 2020, but every time I paint, I feel like she's here with me. Many of her paintings were tragically lost in a fire at the studio where they were being stored, but they are as alive as ever in my mind. I wanted to make a painting that would give me the chance to recreate some of those that were the most memorable paintings that Linda made that really impacted me growing up. For starters, she had a painting of herself laying on the grass as a young girl, reaching up for the stars. So that kind of served as the inspiration for my composition, and I replaced the girl with me. That's about how I looked when I started going to Linda's class. And then in the sky, I created constellations out of some of Linda's imagery from her work. Including the phoenix. Her connection to the phoenix goes back to her childhood. I'll let her tell you.
When I was in the 5th grade, I was really shy and bashful, and our teacher would turn on the radio once a week, and someone would tell a story, and then she would invite the kids to draw. We sat in rows, and you sat in alphabetical order. So all through grade school, the same kid sat behind me. I won't tell you his name, but I called him Booger. I didn't call it to his face, but in my head he was Booger, because he would wipe snot in the back of my hair. He would spit in the back of my hair. He would get mud all over his shoes and rub them down my back. He would pull my hair. He would knock me down on the playground. He tormented me. I never would draw because I didn't want anybody to make fun of me. And I thought if I drew something that was ugly, people would make fun of me. This man was telling this story about a phoenix and how it rose from ashes. I drew a phoenix and colored it with crayons, and I was so proud of it. And the teacher, she always picked one, and it went in the place of honor for a whole week. She picked this drawing and she hung it up, and she said, "Linda, this is really beautiful." And I don't remember ever having a compliment up until that time. This was 5th grade. The bell rang, and she walks out of the room, and Booger jumps up, runs up front, grabs the drawing, and tears it up, and throws it up in the air, and he says, "You're too stupid to ever be an artist." That's why we chose it for the logo for our You Will Rise.
Linda loved creating colorful, magical worlds, and I think some of that came out of her childhood that was very monotone. She grew up in the mountains in poverty with a lot of neglect and abuse in her household. So as soon as she got a hold of paint, she wanted every color imaginable. And some of my favorite paintings that she did were of fantastical creatures like this dragon. Here's a pic of the original painting that one came from. And as with most of her work, it has a deeper meaning than it appears. The dragon, in this case, represents her father, who was very abusive to her growing up.
I saw my father as a dragon. This is me inside the tree, and that's little Princess Twilight out there with a golden sword that she's going to protect me from the dragon.
Linda's paintings were always beautiful to look at, but they also told some very deep and personal stories about her life. That's where I learned that art can be more than just a pretty picture on a wall. It can really be a way of expressing yourself. The paint palette came from a series that she made sort of reflecting on her life from the early days to the present.
When I was in the hospital bed, a friend of mine said, "Linda, you need to do something. You're going crazy." And I was. And she said, "I'm going to teach you to paint." And I said, "I'm not going to paint." Her and her husband and my husband built an easel over my hospital bed. I was in my living room, I was still in the pelvic traction, so I could only move my arms and my head about 12 degrees. And she put this easel up there, and then she attached a canvas to it. And I said, "I'm not painting." And she said, "Yes, you are." And she squirted out purple paint, and she grabbed a brush and she put it in my hand, and she took my hand and swapped it across that white canvas, and from that day on I was and I probably painted 600 or more paintings.
This is the little cabin in the mountains of West Virginia where Linda grew up. It appears in a lot of her work because a lot of her paintings were about exploring and expressing those early days of her life.
When people went by our house, they saw the facade, but within that house there was the red figure simulates the violence, the skeletal figure is the poverty, and the black and blue is the abuse. And you can see I'm reaching for the light. I want out of the mountains, but it's holding me back.
And lastly, I recreated one of her iris paintings. She loved purple irises, and I remember seeing gigantic paintings of them in her studio too, so I knew I had to include that.
The purple iris is one of the first paintings Paul saw of mine when he walked in the room, and it's big, gigantic. So him and I sort of have this thing about irises, and every now and then he'll put an iris in one of these paintings to remind me.
Linda always saw the best in everyone, even when we couldn't see it in ourselves. I miss her so much. I think about her every day, but I'm also working really hard to carry on her legacy, to be a mentor myself to other people, and to take advantage of every opportunity I can to share her work and her story, because it deserves to be heard. Thank you everyone for watching, and thank you Linda for a lifetime of inspiration.